The name you speak when calling upon the divine may not be the name that carries authentic spiritual power. Throughout centuries of religious translation and institutional control, the original vibrational frequency of the sacred name became distorted, diluted, and deliberately obscured. What we know as Jesus represents layers of linguistic transformation that stripped away the energetic essence embedded in the original Hebrew pronunciation. This transformation was not accidental but served specific purposes related to religious authority and spiritual control. Yeshua, the authentic name spoken by those who walked with the Master, carries within its syllables a complete spiritual technology. Ancient Hebrew understanding recognized names as vibrational formulas that connected speakers directly to the essence of what they named. Each letter held specific spiritual significance, and their combination created energetic patterns that could activate dormant spiritual capacities within human consciousness. The name Yeshua functions as both identifier and spiritual instruction manual. The Hebrew letters composing Yeshua contain profound symbolic and energetic meanings that were lost through successive translations. Yud represents the divine spark, the initial creative impulse that ignites spiritual awakening within human consciousness. Shin embodies the eternal flame of spiritual transformation, the fire that purifies and elevates earthly awareness toward divine recognition. Vav serves as the connecting principle, the bridge linking heaven and earth, divine and human, potential and manifestation. Ayin symbolizes spiritual sight, the inner eye that perceives beyond physical appearances into spiritual reality. Together, these letters spell out a process of spiritual development rather than merely identifying an individual. The divine spark ignites through transformational fire, creating connections that enable spiritual perception. Speaking the name Yeshua activates this sequence within the consciousness of the speaker, serving as both prayer and initiation into higher spiritual states. This understanding reveals why ancient traditions placed such emphasis on proper pronunciation and sacred utterance. The transformation from Yeshua to Jesus occurred through deliberate institutional processes designed to centralize religious authority and diminish individual spiritual empowerment. The Council of Nicaea under Emperor Constantine standardized Christian doctrine to serve imperial unity rather than spiritual authenticity. This standardization required domesticating the wild, mystical traditions that had grown around Yeshua's teachings, transforming them into manageable religious structures that supported rather than challenged existing power systems. Greek translation eliminated the breath-centered Hebrew pronunciation, replacing living sound with intellectual concept. The original name contained breathing patterns that naturally induced meditative states and opened spiritual perception. Greek transliteration as Isis maintained phonetic similarity while removing the respiratory elements that activated consciousness. Latin further refined this into Jesus, completely severing the connection to Hebrew mystical pronunciation. English adoption as Jesus completed the linguistic journey away from original spiritual technology. Each translation step served the broader project of transforming an inner awakening teaching into an external salvation doctrine. Yeshua taught that the kingdom of divine consciousness existed within each person, accessible through proper spiritual practice and direct experience. Institutional Christianity needed believers to seek salvation through external authority rather than discovering their own divine nature. Changing the name supported this theological shift by removing the vibrational key that unlocked inner spiritual experiences. The original teachings preserved in Gnostic texts reveal the radical nature of Yeshua's actual message. Rather than establishing himself as unique divine being requiring worship, he consistently pointed toward the divine potential present within all human consciousness. His instructions focused on awakening this inner divinity through specific practices and understanding rather than through belief in external doctrines or historical events. These teachings threatened religious institutions that depended on maintaining spiritual authority over their followers. Hidden Gospels discovered in the 20th century provide insight into the suppressed aspects of Yeshua's teachings. The Gospel of Thomas contains sayings that emphasize immediate spiritual realization rather than future salvation. The Gospel of Philip explores the mystical marriage between human and divine consciousness. The Gospel of Mary reveals teachings about direct spiritual experience that bypasses institutional mediation. These texts demonstrate the sophisticated spiritual psychology that early followers understood and practiced. The sacred science underlying Yeshua's teachings connects to advanced understanding of human consciousness and spiritual anatomy. Ancient mystery schools recognized the physical body as a spiritual laboratory containing specific mechanisms for consciousness transformation. The pineal gland, spinal column, and brain chemistry provided the biological foundation for spiritual awakening when properly activated through sacred practices and understanding. Modern neuroscience validates many aspects of ancient spiritual anatomy through research on meditation, consciousness states, and brain function. The pineal gland produces DMT and regulates circadian rhythms, connecting physical and spiritual dimensions of human experience. Spinal cord nerve pathways facilitate communication between brain and body that can be influenced through breathing, posture, and focused attention. These discoveries provide scientific context for understanding the biological basis of spiritual transformation. The practice of speaking the sacred name creates measurable effects on consciousness and physiology. Specific sound vibrations influence brainwave patterns, respiratory rhythms, and nervous system activation. Hebrew pronunciation of Yeshua engages breath control, vocal resonance, and meditative focus simultaneously, creating optimal conditions for spiritual experience. Regular practice develops sensitivity to subtle energetic states and enhanced access to intuitive awareness. Breathing patterns embedded in proper pronunciation of Yeshua naturally induce altered states of consciousness conducive to spiritual insight and healing. The aspirated sounds require deep respiratory engagement that activates parasympathetic nervous system responses. This physiological shift creates mental calmness, emotional balance, and enhanced spiritual receptivity. Ancient practitioners understood these effects and developed elaborate breathing practices around sacred name pronunciation. The vibrational frequency of properly spoken Hebrew carries harmonic resonances that affect both speaker and listener at cellular levels. Sound healing research demonstrates that specific frequencies can influence DNA expression, cellular regeneration, and immune system function. Sacred name pronunciation combines intention, vibration, and breath to create therapeutic effects that extend beyond psychological comfort into measurable biological changes. Contemporary practitioners report various experiences when working with the authentic pronunciation of Yeshua. Some notice immediate calming effects and enhanced meditation depth. Others experience emotional releases as suppressed feelings surface for healing. Visual phenomena, energy sensations, and spontaneous insights commonly occur during sustained practice. These experiences suggest that the name retains its capacity to activate dormant spiritual faculties within human consciousness. The systematic suppression of Gnostic Christianity eliminated widespread knowledge of practical spirituality that emphasized direct experience over institutional authority. Gnostic communities practiced advanced meditation techniques, energy healing, and consciousness exploration that produced rapid spiritual development. Church persecution of these groups served to eliminate alternative approaches to spirituality that might undermine clerical power and doctrinal authority. Understanding the true name provides a foundation for exploring other suppressed aspects of early Christian mysticism. Sacred geometry, numerology, astrology, and alchemical symbolism permeated original teachings but were eliminated during Orthodox consolidation. Recovering these elements reveals Christianity as a comprehensive spiritual science rather than a simple belief system requiring faith without understanding. The inner Christ concept represents universal spiritual potential rather than unique historical incarnation. Every human being possesses the same divine spark that Yeshua fully activated and expressed. His life and teachings provide a roadmap for consciousness development that others can follow to achieve similar spiritual realization. This understanding transforms religious worship into spiritual practice and theological belief into experiential knowing. Meditation practices incorporating the sacred name develop spiritual sensitivity and access to higher consciousness states. Beginning practitioners can start with simple repetition during quiet contemplation, allowing the sounds to resonate throughout their being. Advanced practitioners may combine name repetition with specific breathing patterns, visualization techniques, and energy awareness practices. Consistent practice gradually awakens dormant spiritual capacities and deepens connection to divine consciousness. The chakra system provides a framework for understanding how sacred name pronunciation affects different aspects of consciousness and spiritual development. Yud activates the crown chakra, connecting practitioners to universal consciousness. Shin ignites the heart chakra, awakening love and compassion. Vav energizes the throat chakra, enabling authentic spiritual expression. Ayin opens the third eye chakra, developing intuitive perception and spiritual sight. Coordinated pronunciation engages multiple energy centers simultaneously. Energy healing applications of the sacred name extend its benefits beyond personal spiritual development into therapeutic practice. Practitioners trained in sound healing can use proper pronunciation to facilitate healing sessions, combining intention with vibrational therapy. The name serves as both healing tool and spiritual protection, creating sacred space conducive to deep healing work. Clients often report profound experiences of peace, clarity, and spiritual connection during sessions incorporating sacred name pronunciation. Group practice amplifies the effects of sacred name work through harmonic resonance and collective intention. When multiple practitioners pronounce Yeshua together with proper technique and sincere devotion, the combined vibrational field creates powerful spiritual experiences for all participants. Community practice also provides mutual support and encouragement for sustained spiritual development, countering the isolation that often accompanies individual mystical exploration. Historical examples of name-based spiritual practices exist across various traditions, confirming the universal recognition of sound as spiritual technology. Hindu mantra practice, Islamic dhikr, Buddhist chanting, and Jewish Kabbalah all incorporate sacred sound as fundamental spiritual methodology. These parallel developments suggest that Yeshua's use of his name as spiritual tool aligns with perennial wisdom traditions rather than representing unique innovation. The relationship between language and consciousness becomes apparent through sustained work with sacred pronunciation. Words carry energetic charges beyond their semantic meaning, affecting both speaker and listener at subconscious levels. Sacred languages like Hebrew, Sanskrit, and Arabic preserve vibrational qualities that modern languages often lack. Working with these ancient sounds provides access to consciousness states that contemporary linguistic environments cannot readily facilitate. Developing sensitivity to the energetic dimension of language enhances all forms of spiritual communication and practice. Practitioners become more aware of how their words affect others and choose speech that uplifts rather than diminishes spiritual atmosphere. Prayer, meditation instruction, and spiritual teaching become more effective when delivered with awareness of vibrational impact. This sensitivity extends beyond formal spiritual practice into daily communication. The psychological effects of reclaiming authentic spiritual identity through proper name usage can be profound and transformative. Many practitioners report feeling more connected to their spiritual heritage and purpose after adopting traditional pronunciation. The act of speaking Yeshua with understanding represents claiming personal spiritual authority rather than depending on external religious validation. This shift from dependent to autonomous spirituality marks significant psychological and spiritual maturation. Integration of sacred name practice with contemporary spiritual disciplines creates hybrid approaches that honor both ancient wisdom and modern understanding. Meditation retreats may incorporate Hebrew pronunciation alongside mindfulness techniques. Yoga classes might include sacred sound work with traditional postures and breathing. Therapeutic practices can integrate vibrational healing with conventional counseling approaches. These combinations respect traditional knowledge while adapting to contemporary needs and contexts. The global spiritual awakening occurring in contemporary times creates favorable conditions for recovering suppressed spiritual technologies like sacred name pronunciation. Increasing numbers of people seek direct spiritual experience rather than institutional religious participation. This hunger for authentic spirituality motivates exploration of ancient practices that were previously accessible only to specialized religious communities. Sacred name work provides accessible entry point into advanced spiritual development. Scientific research on consciousness and spirituality provides growing validation for practices that earlier generations might have dismissed as superstition. Studies on meditation demonstrate measurable brain changes that correlate with reported spiritual experiences. Research on sound healing confirms therapeutic effects of specific frequencies and vibrations. Investigation of near-death experiences reveals consciousness capabilities that transcend material explanation. This scientific context supports serious exploration of ancient spiritual technologies. The democratization of spiritual knowledge through digital communication enables widespread sharing of practices that were formerly transmitted only through direct teacher-student relationships. Online communities can form around specific practices like sacred name pronunciation, providing mutual support and shared learning opportunities. Digital resources make ancient texts and traditional knowledge accessible to anyone with internet connection. This accessibility accelerates spiritual development by removing barriers that previously limited advanced spiritual education. Cultural resistance to recovering authentic spiritual practices often stems from attachment to familiar religious forms rather than openness to deeper spiritual truth. Many people find comfort in traditional religious participation and may feel threatened by suggestions that their practices could be enhanced or corrected. Approaching sacred name work with respect for existing beliefs while offering additional spiritual tools helps overcome resistance and promotes integration rather than replacement of current practices. The eventual widespread adoption of authentic spiritual practices may contribute to collective consciousness evolution and social transformation. As more individuals develop direct access to divine consciousness through practices like sacred name pronunciation, the need for external religious authority diminishes. This shift toward spiritual autonomy could support broader social movements toward personal empowerment and collective cooperation. Spiritual awakening and social evolution often proceed together throughout history. Teaching others about sacred name pronunciation requires sensitivity to individual readiness and spiritual development level. Beginning students may need extensive preparation through simpler practices before attempting advanced sound work. Experienced practitioners can dive directly into sophisticated techniques combining pronunciation with complex visualization and energy awareness. Effective teaching adapts instruction to student capacity while maintaining the integrity of traditional methods. The lineage aspect of spiritual transmission ensures that authentic teachings pass accurately from generation to generation despite external pressures for modification or suppression. Teachers who have received proper instruction in sacred name pronunciation carry responsibility for preserving both technique and understanding for future students. This lineage transmission protects against gradual corruption that might occur through casual or uninformed sharing of spiritual practices. Personal transformation through sustained sacred name practice often proceeds through predictable stages of development. Initial experiences may involve simple relaxation and enhanced meditation quality. Intermediate practice typically produces emotional healing and increased intuitive awareness. Advanced practitioners may develop psychic abilities, healing capacities, and direct spiritual communication. Understanding these developmental stages helps practitioners maintain appropriate expectations and continue practice through challenging periods. The ultimate goal of sacred name practice extends beyond personal spiritual advancement to include service to collective human evolution. Individual awakening creates positive influence that radiates outward through family, community, and broader social networks. Practitioners become agents of spiritual transformation who facilitate others' awakening through their presence and example. This service orientation prevents spiritual practice from becoming selfish pursuit and maintains connection to universal love and compassion.